Roll for Crit is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. Come roll with us at patreon.com/rollforcrit. Rise and shine, lovebirds. Valentine's Day is over. It's time to start a new week, and as always, there is some industry-shattering board game news that you've got to hear right now on our Roll for Crit News Roundup.
Board Game Arena, one of the many popular digital platforms we've all been using to play board games digitally over the internet, has announced it is partnering up with Asmodee. In their own website, they talked about how this is a big deal because one of the problems they've had with running the website is, well, it's just them. And hopefully with this infusion from Asmodee, they'll be able to do more, as well as have some more backing and get some of the games from Asmodee. They did say on their site, their own site that is, that they are going to make sure that this stays an independent partnership, not really an owning, so they can still make their own decisions. That said, there are some people who are a little bit worried with, well, one company owning it, including some people who have published some of their own games on Board Game Arena. They wish that Board Game Arena went to them first to be able to renegotiate, I guess, their deals they had, at least before they made the final agreements with Asmodee. So it is a very interesting sort of legal area, because unlike most of the time when we bring up Asmodee, it's not them buying the company that makes 5 different board games, and then employers can choose to stay or leave. This is more like buying Steam or something.
Right.
And a bunch of other companies are underneath it. And, they're not just an employee. They're their own companies. So I'm very curious to see how this will flow out and deal with it. Because I know some people are like, are they going to buy Tabletop Simulator now? Which is even weirder because a lot of that is, user-generated products. It's not even the companies coming there. So it's definitely Asmodee trying to get more into the digital space, which should be good. One could hope, but it's hard not to be a little pessimistic these days.
There are a lot of reasons to not like this. I haven't seen anyone outside of perhaps the owners of Board Game Arena and Asmodee who are pleased with this. I don't like you mentioned, some of the designers that were kind of taken aback by this, but consumers and users as well are worried, and for good reason. I think Asmodee is a huge company, and beyond just the fact that they weren't told that they're now giving their rights to their game to a competitor. It's a very different type of entity. It goes from this small independent kind of website to this huge conglomerate that is a very different kind of a vibe. And we have seen in the recent past, Asmodee has started to a little bit here and there go after some of those Tabletop Simulator fan-made versions of their games. And it seems like maybe this is their way of taking a stronger stand against that. Like, well, if we can't stop people from making them, we'll just buy the thing where they put it. That way they won't be able to do it as much anymore, perhaps, or we'll make some money off it at least.
Right. The one thing is, like I said, I think it's more of an issue on, I don't know about Board Game Arena, but I know Tabletop
It's a
Simulator.
little more curated on Board Game Arena, but they can compete with that now,
Yes. But at the same time, that means they can release like the official images and scans. Now, when we find a very weird one of an outdated version.
But it is, for me, it's just like they already control so much of physical board games.
Look, yeah, anyone who controls so much, it's always worrisome. I will say, and this is not a counter to your argument. And even like, it's a very possible silver lining, but it's like a silver lining to a cloud that's so big, it's not worth it. But the one thing I would love to see them do with this, now that they actually have like one of these things, to be like, all right, let's actually make a digital version to put like Arkham Horror. Because I know that was one of the hardest ones they went after, the card game, for a digital version.
Yeah, I honestly expect that they will not do any of that. I don't think they're putting, because they have their digital video game versions of games, right? I don't even know if they're interested. I think this was probably purely a decision in terms of profit they can make off it and controlling more of the market.
In their post, this is not like, I've not seen an official documents. I don't even know if those are out of their agreement, but it says the joining agreement ensures that Board Game Arena, BGA, remains an independent entity legally and organizationally, and which means they can make their own decisions. It just seems like Asmodee doesn't seem like I feel like this is like just one step. Like you said, they've been gathering a lot. Look what they've been doing to Fantasy Flight. I don't think that's an independent entity, and I wonder how long they'll allow that.
And how much of that is just PR versus the truth.
Right, that too. Like I said, not the official binding legal document.
The Witcher is making its way back to the tabletop world again with the newly announced board game, The Witcher: The Old World, from Board on Dice, which will be hitting Kickstarter this May for a release in 2022. Comes from designer Lucas Wozniak, who has done other games like Valhalla and Titans, and several others that I think only saw a Polish release, or at least not an American release. The game itself focuses on the before times of The Witcher, so pre-Geralt of Rivia, pre the games or the core books, at least to my knowledge, and each player will be taking on the role of a new Witcher, their own Witcher, from one of the different Witcher houses or Witcher schools, and trying to make their way fighting monsters and competing to be the best Witcher that they can be. It's interesting that they have decided to go that route. Of course, we saw another Witcher board game, the Witcher Adventure game, a few years ago, and that one didn't do so hot, wasn't really well received. I do like that game was done by Ignacy Cevicek of Portal Games. This also a Polish designer. I like that The Witcher is a Polish series, and they're consistently keeping it within Polish designers. I think that's kind of nice. What do you think about the decision to make this a prequel as opposed to, using the actual characters from the stories?
In general, I think it's a good idea because that usually gives you more leeway, and you don't have to be like, well, we have to follow the TV show or the games. I mean, we've already seen how angry people have gotten when they made slight changes in the show compared to like the books or the games. But the one thing I don't know as well, especially with something usually, I don't know why, I feel like it's more of a fantasy thing, how much the past, because I feel like a lot of times like the past was like magic wasn't a thing until the dark elves appeared or something. So I wonder just how much will that affect The Witcher? I think, did you actually read the books? I can't remember.
I have not read any of the books. I've just played some of the games. Yeah.
Overall, I think it's it's a cool fantasy setting that we're all recognizing now, especially with the TV show and video games. So it's nice to be able to do it and not feel like, but I want to be Geralt. You could just be like, be your own Witcher.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a good idea as well. I think it may be even more successful than them having to be tied to those characters. You can do your own thing. And I would guess, although I don't really know, that the world in the past probably isn't that much different. They probably just set it back there so they wouldn't have to worry about running into any canon stuff, and they could kind of do their own thing.
Wizards of the Coast has settled yet another case. Earlier, we talked about how they settled a case with the writers of Dragonlance. They have now also settled their case with Gale Force 9. Gale Force 9 sued Wizards of the Coast for trying to break up their agreement involving the Dungeons & Dragons products that Gale Force 9 was going to make, but then Wizards wasn't going to do it and break the contract. Now it seems they've come to agreement, so much so that the court settled it without even making a payout from one side to the other. I assume that means everything was settled in contracts involving said products. So everyone is coming out of this happy. It seems Wizards has decided to take all these court cases and be like, no, we should stick and not burn any bridges just yet. This is also coming up with the fact that Hasbro announced that Wizards through Magic has been one of their most profitable years. So maybe they're like, we have the money to spare to not just waste it in court cases.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised, but there really was a happy ending here to some extent. That for what it was, maybe in the last 2 months, it seemed like there were these two different Wizards lawsuits. I feel like there was a third, but I can't recall. But maybe I'm just adding more into the mix that I'm making up. But both of those now have been resolved. They just said, okay, we'll do what you want. We'll make you happy, which, I mean, yeah, they should have done that in the first place. That's crazy to me that they didn't just honor these contracts. I wonder if there was some kind of, I don't know, like management shift, or these things just somehow got shoveled to the side somewhere and no one remembered it, because it seems very odd to me that they would specifically just be like, we're not doing those anymore, those deals we made. Oh, now we are.
Yeah, it could be one of those things where something happened and like technically the right way to go about it for the defendant no, not defendants. The both Gale Force 9 and the writers was to sue. Like, that's just what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And like something weird like that.
It's
The
all
Wizards
business.
like, all right, yeah. But personally, I like to believe that they just want to save up their money for their lawyers for when they finally reprint all the reserve list of Magic and all the collectors get angry and try to sue them because they made a contract with them.
We have word of a brand new animated series coming based on the board game Clue, also known as Cluedo if you're in the UK. This is coming to us from Fox and Bento Box Entertainment, which is an animation company that's worked on several Fox cartoons, probably most notably Bob's Burgers, but there are some others you may have heard of. And again, it's going to be based on the Clue board game, which of course is a mystery deduction game with colorful characters, literally, all attempting to solve a murder and find out who killed who in this great big mansion. The board game TV properties seem real hot these days. We've had news about there was a Dungeons and Dragons show as well as a Risk show. We also recently heard about an Uno film coming from Mattel. So it seems like now is the time to get all these hot properties on screen somehow. What do you think about Clue being an animated series? Of course, we've loved the Clue movie, but this is maybe a different thing.
Well, when I first saw this, I thought, okay, old Saturday morning cartoon, like, you know how they made like a Bill and Ted and Back to the Future cartoon that had nothing to do? Like, that's what appeared in my head. Then you said Bento Box. I'm like, oh, so this is going to be more like Yu-Gi-Oh! Saturday morning or Pokemon. But then you said Bob's Burgers. I'm like, okay, so this is going to be like Adult Swim.
To be
like...
clear also, by the way, like they did the animation for Bob's Burgers. It's not the writing team or anything like that. That's just an example.
Right, but it's also the style, I guess.
It could. They do have different styles, though. I have seen their shows look pretty different. So I don't think it's going to look like Bob's Burgers.
All right. I don't know. I mean, probably still, I think Bob's Burgers, Rick and Morty, and BoJack Horseman's probably the audience. I have a feeling they're leaning towards.
I mean, I will say most of the stuff they have done is more adult oriented, and I guess it is about a murder. But my first thought was that it would be more like a kid oriented show because Clue is a kid's game, right? Or at least a family game.
It is. I guess in my head, I just feel like it's.
I mean, the Clue movie was for adults, so.
Right. I'm not even thinking about murder because I feel like it is possible to bring that into a kid's show. I think we've seen it.
My question is, how do you sustain this plot for like a 12-episode season? Is it a different murder each episode? Is it one they are trying to figure out the mansion murder mystery for the whole season? Is one of them now a detective that solves different mysteries every episode? Like, what do you make that? It makes sense for a movie to me, but for an ongoing show, I'm not sure how you sustain that idea. Maybe it's just like a Sherlock Holmes type of thing now, and it's just every week there's another murder at the old mansion with the same people. I don't know.
Renegade has announced they're doing a second edition of Gravwell. This is a game in which you are all ships stuck in the gravity pool of Blackwell, and your only way to move about is using your tractor beam. And you can lock on to different asteroids to mine things or other ships, but you might have to be careful about that because they can take advantage of the situation. It seems this new edition will have new art as well as go up to 6 players. I have not played this game. Jonathan, have you ever had the chance to play this one?
Haven't played Gravwell. I think it's kind of an older game now. Older for the FOMO world of board games. It seems like an older game.
It didn't come out last week,
right? So it no longer is relevant. But it sounds pretty fun, and it sounds like they're giving it some cool upgrades. And the art is from I believe his name is Quanchi Moria, who has done like.
Thank you for saying it. I looked at it. I'm like, I'm not even gonna try because I will butcher their name.
I just like to give it the old college try, but he did the art for Dinosaur Island and plenty of other games. He has a really cool style, so that's a great pick to go with. And yeah, it sounds like some pretty cool gameplay, and hopefully we'll get the chance to try it out with fresh eyes and see what we think without comparing it to the original.
Yeah, and like I said, it's not actually just artwork, which usually is cool enough on its own. They've actually added some unique powers for some ships and some other tweaks, so it is more than simply just a facelift. This is the news we have for you. Obviously, the big one being Asmodee and Board Game Arena joining up, the good, the bad, and the possibly ugly. Let us know your thoughts on this. It's definitely a very interesting situation. But of course, there's also all the other news stories. What do you think the Clue cartoon's going to be? Are you excited for Gravwell? Did you play the first edition? We'd love to hear all about it.
Yeah, you can talk to us about those things in the comments down below, or whatever you have on your mind. News, board games, questions, comments. Tell us about it down there. We thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy the rest of your week. We'll be here with more videos as always. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
And this was Roll for Crit.
Never miss out by liking and subscribing, and you can also check out more on our Patreon.
We do weekly podcasts on Patreon. Don't you want to sign up and hear more of our voices?